Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, we have a super interesting guest with Phil Ruttens. Now, Phil, you are not only the Chief Marketing Officer at Tyke, but you are part of a really important and interesting community, a RevOps community. And what we're going to be talking about is not only a lot that you help lead and learn in that community, but just how to create really true go-to-market efficiencies so that we can create long-term sustainable growth. So that's what we're all in business to do, right? So you're going to give us some thoughts on that today. But what I'd love to do before we dig right in is just maybe turn it over to you for, a minute here and maybe explain a little bit more about your background.
Sure. Well, I'm an old guy, right? I've been in B2B marketing for 30 years now, originally from Belgium, but I've worked a lot for American companies and in the UK also. Basically B2B the whole time. And my career evolved from communications to research into basically lead generation, demand generation, and revenue marketing. And in the last few years in SaaS, working more and more with sales and the RevOps sides, which are critical for the future of marketing, really.
Well, I love that you've worked in SaaS. I'm a former SaaS founder myself. My heart and soul is in SaaS for sure. What I want to do is get us kicked off and, to truly create these efficiencies in the go-to-market, you've got a point of view on the importance of revenue marketing and ROI as a part of that. Maybe that's a good way to start, is just your opinion on revenue marketing and ROI.
Totally. SaaS and let's say related sectors have been looking at growth for the last few years, and growth is still important, but it's kind of a given now. Not only looking more from an investor's point of view or from the board's point of view, you're looking at efficiency, which can be called cost of acquisition, CAC payback, LTV, etc. But fundamentally, what I found over my career in B2B marketing is that the old focus, if you want, on branding and creative is kind of shifted actually towards demand management, growth marketing, and obviously creation of deals as opposed of creation to leads and creation of pipeline, but not at all costs. If you look at the last couple of years, the focus has shifted gradually from growth to efficiency, cost efficiency, which typically means budget versus revenue created and won. A typical 800% ROI for marketing budget is not unknown of. And it's also about the whole go-to-market 360 way of selling, of the whole buyer journey. And that involves different teams, obviously, not just marketing and sales, but also customer success, product, customer support, and RevOps, or whatever the term is used in the company.
Well, so we're, as CMOs, we're very, very well versed these days that we've got to be pipeline driven, revenue driven, data driven, all of these things we know. The difference, though, in your mind, in the shift from maybe 10 years ago to where we are right now, because I've been in business about as long as you have too. So I don't usually say it's been 30 years.
Guys
dates us, right? But what does this mean? I mean, day to day, how we work, how we collaborate, what we do differently internally, because we do need to be so revenue, or you've actually even give presentations on, RevOps versus go-to-market ops, right? What's the difference there? What's the change that we need to be understanding and aware of?
I'll take a very recent story, actually. I was in London last week for the Alliance, RevOps and CRO Alliance. And I was presenting actually in the RevOps group. And I was one of the only marketeers there. And I was there because I wanted to learn more how these people act and how they perceive marketing. And obviously it was a lot about tools, AI, processes, and sales efficiency. One of the quotes was 90% of the marketing content is not used by sales, which actually I didn't know about. Well, I knew intuitively, but not the number. And how marketing is perceived by RevOps and vice versa is interesting. and just confirms what I've seen throughout my career in the last 10 years as CMO, for example, that the silos, whether you like it or not, and even if you have people who get on, let's say, and not fight between sales and marketing, the silos are there because we are humans. We have mindsets, we have personalities, we have fixed ways of working, and it's everything change and comfort zone and all that stuff is still, whether you have AI or not, it's still there. So you have, they can have the perfect strategy on paper. You can have processes through RevOps, MarOps, SalesOps, whatever it is, and technology, which actually is quite easy now, and you get all kinds of tools. But the people side has always been what's creating slowdown or friction or missed opportunities. And that's a tough one. I hear that from everyone, from the marketing side, from the sales side, from RevOps. So not an easy one to fix.
You and I were just talking right before this that I interview on this podcast, right? CMOs, CROs, CEOs, the go-to-market suite, basically. And I asked them what they think their biggest challenges are going forward. And one of the biggest trends that we see is internal challenges. They perceive some of their biggest challenges to creating long-term sustainable growth is internal, is exactly what you're talking to here. It's also the reason why VCs, private equity firms, when they put money into us as startups, they look at the team first, the idea second. So it's interesting you're hearing this too, right? Like, doesn't it make your stomach turn? Like, as marketers, we know content is the lubricant that creates, value and our brand and sparks conversations. And to hear that 90% of our value that we're providing, right, to sales isn't getting used, like something pretty significant has to change here, I would say.
Oh, yes, that's again a tough one. I think I don't think, it takes something significant. Sometimes it does. Obviously, there are some people who are part of the problem as opposed to the solution. And obviously you need leadership that is aligned in a very solid culture, with similar goals, similar OKRs, and similar values.
Yeah.
That is critical. But that's not enough. What I found is that, again, you can have the best processes and the tool, the tech stack, but people now are so busy and so overloaded with information and tasks and tools. The trick, I think, next year is really how do you focus, simplify, visualize, storytell in a way that is absorbable or digestible, I should say, and where less is more. So we've always heard about the focus, and if you try to do too many things at the same time, you just inundate people who are gonna just switch off. And that's what I've seen happen if you talk about internal alignment. So that's one way is basically focus and simplify. Another way to solve that internal challenge or set of internal challenges is, well, often I've seen the basics of having different goals, different OKRs, where a product basically has these KPIs or OKRs, sales is these ones, and marketing these ones. And sales is paid on commission, marketing is paid on something else. Right. It goes down to these HR practices. And the third one is really communication, again, between people, communications and the soft side, if you want, the soft skills and the team stakeholder management. I mean, it is, after 30 years, I'm still working on it. I've learned a lot and hopefully improved also. But yeah, and the teams change, right? People, when you recruit people, people let go or people move, and the glue, the energy of a team or a leadership team can change quite rapidly or slowly. And it's really important that the board, the CEO, pay a lot of attention to that to ensure that there are no silos. So it's both a bottom up and a top down kind of consistent focus, if you want.
How do you get everybody focusing on the same thing? Right. So one of the things that I've done in this podcast is I think we're on segment 8 of why do B2B CMOs fail so quickly. And the thing that CMOs bring up, and then we're doing this with CROs too, because they fail pretty quickly as well, is the fact that they say that alignment in the go-to-market teams, specifically between marketing and sales, is an issue. Down to the point where I read a study that the definition of the ICP, the ideal customer profile, there's only 16% alignment on average between marketing and sales on the definition of the ICP, which might be one of the reasons why, as an end result, 90% of our content doesn't make any sense to sales, right? Like that's where I'm going back to. There's something dramatically wrong here. Like we've got enough indicators, right, that there's something going on that's wrong. It seems like an alignment, right? The different OKRs, the different KPIs, the different definitions of ICP, that's a big problem. How do we get into alignment?
I would say I don't disagree with it, but in my experience of the last 2 or 3 roles I had, I have not seen the ICP as in the theoretical definition of an ICP or persona or job to be done being a major issue. Yes, you need to repeat and repeat again and train. So the training in communication side and the repetition is important, but 2 points. Fundamentally, I think salespeople, the profile of salespeople and marketing people are quite different. It's very rare to have marketeers who have a strong sales affinity or understanding as a sales enablement expert. Same thing for product and marketing, by the way. A product marketeer is quite a hard to find person. Same thing on the sales side. Somebody who's worked in marketing before understands how to use the Marcom assets, for example. I'd come back to the simplification again of your assets. And I think marketeers can help by integrating the messaging into the way and the format of how each individual salesperson works, because they all have their way of working. They like to work on their own, right? Whether they're an AE or an AM or SDR. Even if you have playbooks and you need some sort of playbook, in the end, it's talking to the individual, going through it with them, even sitting on a call, take them by the hand and, okay, I can simplify that. So salespeople are basically our customers in a way, but we are partners. So I never like when a marketeer just say, a salesperson or whoever asked, can you do that? Let's do this. And they say, yes, let's do it. No, think about it. Look at the why. Why should we do that? Why should we distract the marketing team? Because you, salesperson, for example, has preference for this kind of tactic or this kind of account. But at the same time, we have to work as partnership and not handing top funnel to mid to bottom funnel. It's really working together on nurturing. And for example, we have an outbound system with different tiers, a bit like ABM, where we have a process, a scoring model. We have messaging, which are personalized by ICP and persona. And we have to allow some flexibility. Of course, sometimes these will not make sense. Sometimes they need to be personalized or customized, I should say. So again, I don't think there's one template, one way of fixing that. The ICP has to be there, has to be updated every quarter easily, if not more often. And not just the ICP, because the ICP old style is very static in a way of demographics, etc. But what we see is that we'd have to go down to a mix of personas, for example, a tech buyer and a tech influencer and a C-suite person, and the mix, so the buying center or the team, that is the ICP. It's not the company. It's not even a specific context or job title. It is way more complicated now, and it varies with the market, with the competition also, with the product. So it is not just the ICP. It's part of a wheel, as I said, the go-to-market wheel, where you have obviously nothing's changed, the market, the competition, the product, the pricing, etc. But it's in a new set of colors, if you want.
Yeah, it's interesting because like talking about an aligned definition of ICP, but I talked to CMO the other day. She's like, we've got 6 different ICPs, and we've got a whole host of different verticals. And so if you put together the matrix of the ICPs and the verticals and the amount of content that needs to be created, it's the complexity is intense, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what we started talking about was the 80-20 rule. Okay, if you look at that matrix, well, where's 80% of your revenue coming in from, right? And then all of a sudden there's a priority there. And then when you mentioned like you're getting all these tactics requested on you, all of us as CMOs, we can be driven by the tactics, the constant requests that are coming in. So here's my question. Your thought on how important this strategy is. And if we had figured out like the alignment, the go-to-market issue, you and I would write a book together. We go on a speaking tour. We'd be like high-paid consultants and we'd retire in a few years, right? But one of the things that I've had a lot of conversations with in this podcast is just the willingness to say no. Because if we said yes to everything we're asked to do, then we're going to be a department of tactics. We're going to be driven. The tail's going to wag the dog. We're not going to be setting the priorities. Therefore, we're not going to be working on the most important things. From the sales perspective, if we have a definition of an ICP that drives 80% of our business and we can focus, we can prioritize. But if I were a CRO or head of sales or a salesperson, and I was compensated based on my quota attainment, right?
Yep.
I would be looking for every way to bring in a deal, even if it wasn't perfect, even if it didn't fit directly into the ICP. Yet I've had conversations with CROs that say one of the most powerful things that I can do as a CRO is to say no. Because then we're going to bring in deals that aren't right, a good fit for us. They're going to chew up resources. They're going to churn faster. There aren't going to be an expansion opportunity, which is where we need to get a significant portion of our newfound revenue. Like it's not a good thing for long-term sustainable growth of the business. What do you think about just the power of the word no?
Well, absolutely. That's what I mentioned actually before is often I see because a CEO or a VP sales is asking for something. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but it just doesn't make sense right now. So my team is working on a 30, 60, 90-day plan where the priorities are very clearly set. We communicate that to sales. And of course, we have the input into it.
Right.
And to come back to your point about ICPs, indeed, we sometimes, I don't know where your CMO was in terms of stage, but when you, let's say, when you have a strategy in commercial goals and strategies, your ICP doesn't always need to reflect the market needs, insights, pains, value needed, but also does it fit our commercial strategy or investor strategy? So it's always that one. And we had, for example, 4 different ICPs and 7 different personas. So also that kind of matrix.
Right.
But through learning, testing, messaging, through looking at the pipeline, KPIs, we shrank it to 2 main ICPs and about 3, maximum 4 personas, which is still a lot to customize, to segment, introduce landing pages, etc. So again, the focus and the simplification is key here. And the 2080, totally, that's kind of that game, that intent, because it's about speed now, efficiency and speed, right? You want to focus 80% of your resources onto of paid media, for example, or events. Depending on your commercial goals, is it about value? Is it about conversion? Or is it about velocity? For example, you want to become profitable, let's say a Series B within the next 12 months. Or do you want to focus this year or next year on a growth of 50%? Right. These are decisions at strategic board level that also will impact your marketing strategy, obviously, where you want to generate a pocket of revenue maybe in Americas, and EMEA might have a different strategy. So it's not just, okay, that's ICP in the market, but how does it fit? And again, it comes back to internal alignment, and that's constant mix and balance between internal and external is a moving target, and super critical for CMOs to work and CROs together to really shape that.
I have to ask you the question of this process of going from so many ICPs and personas and shrinking
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What were your challenges in getting that accomplished? Because it sounds good, right? It sounds like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We got to prioritize. We shrunk,
Yeah.
right? Now we're focused. Sounds simple. I know
Yeah.
it wasn't, right? I know it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. I would quote two challenges mostly, in my experience. One, you have the qualitative insights, which gather from whatever techniques you use, surveys, etc. But internally, we ran workshops and bureau sessions and all that stuff. And the challenges of having different people with different opinions, because you have an engineer here, you have the research team there, and you have such and such person with such and such background. And repeating that consistently is fine, but there's a point where the number of brainstorms, number of opinions is making it completely unmanageable, chaotic.
Yes.
And you might be right. You might be right. All the stuff there, all the
Yes.
insights are right. But it takes more than one person to crystallize it. Even it could be an agency or somebody else, but make it palatable, make it a simple story. Because if internally you use different language, different definitions, just imagine what's going to happen on the outside, trying to understand what you do, why you do it, how you're different, etc. So that's one. The qualitative rounds, the workshops, brainstorming has to stop at some point. Secondly, the data. If you're not a product-led growth, so I'm coming more from a sales-led growth, enterprise, mid-size kind of environment, where a journey is complex, can take 6, 12 months or more. The data you're going to gather is going to be finite. It's going to, properties or fields are going to be missing. It might take a year, if not 2 years, to gather sufficient amounts, representative samples of data to make decisions. Might be different in B2C, obviously, product-led growth, self-serve, where you gather hundreds of leads every month, for example. So data and qualitative insights are two important ones. And obviously you need a strong process and people to drive that ICP definition and also onboarding and adoption across the company.
I want to ask you, because you're right, like the companies aren't democracies, right? It's not, we want input from the teams, but at some point there has to be something that is, the deciding factor, right? Because you can't be, you're going to be caught in a quagmire. And so I want to ask you a question about this as a potential deciding factor. There is one voice of authority in the business, and it's the customer, right? And so no matter what, like I interviewed this woman from Amazon in their customer success group, and they are probably one of the most customer obsessed organizations in the world. And they have a concept called the open chair, where pre-COVID, it was like in the physical meeting, there would be physically a open chair, and that open chair represented the voice of the customer. So in other words, if the customer were here in the meeting with us today, how would they be influencing our decisions, right? Like that's how important it is. And so what I'm wondering is, how is the voice of the customer themselves influencing these decisions that you're making?
You even have something better, which is the customer advisory board, right?
Yes.
A board sitting next to your board, or I would say in the board, but maybe some companies do it, but a set of customers from your ICPs, or maybe not, or ex-customers, where you can soundboard certain, could be anything really, messaging, tactic, pricing strategy, etc., customer experience. So that's one a way to do it. Another way is obviously the usual customer satisfaction scores or related net promoter scores, which is complemented by actually time spent on the ground at events, for example, like trade shows. Get a lot of insight, input at these events, and also doing, obviously you can do it through webinars, but the face-to-face time is invaluable. Obviously you want to do that also at customer sites more and more, even if totally remote SaaS. The voice of the customer, we also had at Tyke a program, if you want, project or program, where different tactics. I mean, we use, for example, using Zendesk customer support tickets and using LLM to go through the product demos or the discovery calls to identify word clouds. I mean, there's all kinds of techniques you can use. Of course, you have tools, I think like Winter, or you can use all kinds of AI tools to complement all of that. So I think there's enough now to do that, and have also internal people who are talking to customers participate, not just the customers. So yeah, hopefully I answered your question.
So, if there was the whole premise here of our conversation was how to create true go-to-market efficiencies and growth, and we've now talked about quite a few things. If there was one takeaway that you wanted the leaders that are watching this podcast to take away about how to truly create go-to-market efficiencies and growth, what would be the one thing you'd want them to take away?
That's a tough question there. I would say having a small team of GTM, cross-functional team, which you can call demand management office or GTM unit, where you have key stakeholders meeting every week for marketing, sales, product, IT, customer success, and RevOps if you have any, even if you don't have RevOps. So where you go through on a quarterly basis your strategies, your gaps, your priorities, your voice of the customer data and insights, which can come from different teams, but where you have a set of an agenda for each meeting, which consists of decisions and actions, continuous learning. Some of the decisions and actions could be, okay, how can we implement a training? How can we simplify these tools, this process? How can we use AI and machine learning to develop our skills or to summarize our ICPs, depending on the commercial goals? So having that cross-functional task force or unit, it doesn't have to be a formal department or function, but what I call a GTM ops team unit, or a SWAT team, the SWAT GTM team. Doesn't matter. Make it sexy as a name. But I think that, again, coming back to the people side, if you solve that, and then that triggers a series of changes or energy to be change makers across these different teams by having a strong champion or sponsor, usually quite senior, but sometimes it doesn't have to be. There can be somebody in each team that is really a change maker. I think then you can drive that efficiency much faster than a top-down approach or a strictly bottom-up approach.
Like, this is the team that's executing, right? And we all learn, if we're meeting on a regular basis, we're out executing, we're out supporting, we're out implementing, right? And if we come together, one of the biggest things we're going to find out is what isn't working, right?
It's both. And that team I mentioned, the unit, is kind of sitting between being too senior, strategic and theoretical, and the tactical execution is really being the glue between the two, but in a very practical way, in a very short impactful 2080 kind of way of working. So,
I love that because there is, as C-level executives, obviously we have a massive, massive role in developing the go-to-market strategy, right? And how it aligns with the long-term strategic growth of the company. But, we aren't typically in the trenches executing it and learning
no,
from that. And that's a big takeaway from what you just said there. And I know there's going to be a lot of other questions that people have. Would it be appropriate if we gave out a link to your LinkedIn profile so that people
sure.
wanted to reach out? They could do that?
I love to. I love to learn and help where I can, giving my experience, and I love doing these kind of recordings and presentations. So thanks again for that, and hopefully help everyone to advance their career. Like I am still learning too. So
We're always learning, aren't we?
yes,
Well,
we have to.
thank you, Phil. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of your insights. I really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. Thank you.